lovelies, it's another great day to read a story. I especially like today's story because it's about Beauty and the Beast. Okay, let's get into the story. Teddy says hi. Teddy's got her stuffy with her. Where's my stuffy? Oh, where is mine? Oh, there you are. I got my stuffy too. Look, I got my stuffy. Okay, we're ready. Let's take a group picture together. Okay, Teddy, you ready? And we're gonna say cheese, cheese. Come on, get in the picture, get in the picture. Cheese. Once upon a time, in a town far away, there lived a rich merchant who had 3 pretty daughters. The youngest daughter was the prettiest of the 3, and she was called Beauty. She was as good and kind as she was lovely. Her elder sisters, although they were pretty too, they weren't kind and they weren't good. They were very selfish and proud. One day their father came home looking very grave. What does grave mean? That is, he looked very serious. When his daughters asked him what was the matter, he replied, "Alas, I am no longer rich. I have lost my fortune. We must all leave this beautiful house and go to live in a cottage in the country." A cottage means a little house that's like far away from the city. The elder sisters were very angry when they learned the news. "What shall we do with ourselves all day in the country?" Well, Beauty said, "How nice it would be to live in a country among the woods and fields and flowers." So their father found a little cottage with a little garden in the country, and they all went to live there. The father worked hard in the garden, and by selling his fruit and vegetables, he made enough money so they could be comfortable. One day, the father gathered his 3 daughters together and told them that he had to go to a faraway town on business. He might not return until the next day. "Is there any little gift which I might bring home for you?" he asked each of his daughters in turn. "Diamonds for me," said the eldest daughter. "Pearls for me," said the second daughter. "Please, father, a bunch of white roses for me," said Beauty. Then their father rode away on horseback, and Beauty waved to him from the doorstep. When the merchant had finished his business, he set off for home. Before long, it grew dark, and he lost his way. He found himself in a dense wood and could find no way out. Dense means he found himself in a thick forest-like place. Then at last he saw a light in the distance, and he rode towards it. However, as he drew nearer to the light, he found that the trees formed a wide avenue. He rode up the avenue and to his surprise arrived at the entrance to a palace. The door of the palace stood open, but there was no one in sight. So the merchant went in. He went into a room on the right of the hall, where a fire blazed in the hearth. There he found a table set with supper for one. The merchant was hungry and decided he would first take his horse to the stable. Then he would return, and if there was still no one in the room, he would have a good meal. When he returned from the stable, the room was still empty, so he sat down and he enjoyed the supper. After supper, Beauty's father felt sleepy, and crossing the hall, he found the bedroom all ready for use. He went to the bed and slept soundly until the next morning. When he woke, his own clothes were nowhere to be seen, but a new embroidered suit lay on the chair in their place. He dressed himself in the new clothes and set off for the stables to see his horse. On the way to the stables, the merchant passed a beautiful rose garden. The sight of a white rose bush reminded him of Beauty's wish, and he left the path to gather a bunch of roses. He had only picked 1 rose when he heard a terrible sound behind him. Turning round, he saw a big beast. The big beast, in a very big voice, said, "You ungrateful man! Whose bed did you sleep in? Whose food have you eaten? And whose clothes are you wearing? Mine, mine, mine! And you repay my kindness by stealing my roses? You shall die!" The big beast looked so fierce that the poor man was terrified. "Please, don't kill me," he begged. "Your life will be spared on one condition," roared the beast. "You must come back here in a month's time, bringing with you whatever shall first meet you on your return home." Beauty's father could not do other than agree to this. As the merchant rode away from the palace, he thought about the promise he had given to the beast. Then he remembered how Beauty had stood waving to him as he left home. An awful thought struck him. What if it is Beauty who first greets me on my return? Meanwhile, Beauty waited at the window of her room, watching for her dear father to return. When she saw a figure appear in the distance, she skipped to the garden path. Yes, it was her dear father returning home, but Beauty could not think what was wrong with him. He looked tired and sad. "Father, are you not glad to see me?" asked Beauty. "Glad? Oh, my Beauty," cried the poor merchant. When they reached the cottage, the merchant told his daughter of his promise to the beast. "But you shall not return with me, Beauty, whatever happens," he said. Beauty, however, insisted that once a promise was made, it should be kept. "I agree." Finally, her father agreed that at the end of the month he would take her to the beast. End of the month came all too quickly, and the merchant and his beloved daughter set off through the woods. Towards nightfall, Beauty and her father arrived at the palace in the wood. They walked in and found a dainty supper for two. As they sat at the table, a terrible sound was heard at the door. It was the beast. The beast turned to Beauty's dad and said, "Is this the daughter for whom you gathered the white roses?" "Yes," said the merchant. "She need not be sorry," said the beast, "for everything in the palace is for her use. Her room is ready now. Good night." When Beauty reached her room, she found it more beautiful than any she had ever seen. Quite tired, she was soon fast asleep. In the morning, Beauty and her father had breakfast together. Then they said goodbye. When her father had ridden out of sight, Beauty went to her room. On one wall hung a mirror, and beneath it, in letters of gold, was written, Little Beauty, dry your eyes. Needless are those tears and sighs. Gazing in this looking glass, what you wish shall come to pass." These lines comforted Beauty, for she thought that if she were very unhappy, she could wish herself at home again. The days which followed seemed long to Beauty, yet the beast had left many things for her to make her happy. Sometimes she read and sometimes she painted. Some days she played outside in the gardens, and other days she gathered the beautiful flowers. Each day at supper time, the same sound was heard at the door, and a big voice asked, "May I come in?" And each evening Beauty, trembling, answered, "Yes, beast." Then they talked together. Although the beast's body and voice terrified Beauty, his words were so kind that she soon grew less afraid of him. "Am I ugly, Beauty?" the beast asked one evening. "Yes, beast." "And very stupid?" "No, not stupid, beast." "Could you love me, Beauty?" "Yes, I do love you, beast, for you are so kind." "Then will you marry me, Beauty?" "Oh, no, beast." The beast seemed so unhappy that Beauty felt very miserable. "But I could not marry a beast," she said to herself. The next morning, Beauty looked into her mirror. "I wish I could know how my dear father is," she said. Then as she gazed into the looking glass, she saw a sad picture. Her father lay ill in bed, and no one was looking after him. Beauty cried all day to think of his pain and his loneliness. When the beast paid his usual visit in the evening, he saw how sad Beauty looked. "What is the matter, Beauty?" he asked. She then told him why she was so unhappy and begged him to let her go home.
"It will break my heart if you go, Beauty,"
said the Beast.
"Yet I cannot bear to see you weep. You shall go home tomorrow."
Thank you, Beast, but I will not break your heart. I shall come back within a week. The Beast looked very doubtful, for he was afraid he was going to lose Beauty forever.
"Take this ring, and if you wish to come back, lay it on your table before you go to bed at night. And now, goodbye, my Beauty."
That night, Beauty looked in the mirror and wished that next morning that she might wake up in her father's cottage. Beauty's wish came true, for the next morning she found herself at home again. From the very moment he saw her, Beauty's father began to get better. She could hardly believe it when she found a week had passed. But although her father was much improved, Beauty did not feel that he was yet well enough to be left with her unkind sisters. "I shall stay for one more week," said Beauty, and her father smiled happily at the news. However, only a day or two had passed when Beauty had a dream. She dreamt that the Beast was laying on the grass near the white rose bush in the garden palace. He was saying,
"Oh, Beauty, Beauty, you said you would come back. I shall die without you, Beauty."
This dream wakened Beauty, and she could not bear to think of the poor Beast. She jumped out of bed and laid the magic ring on her table. Then she fell asleep again. When she awoke in the morning, she was in her own room in the Beast's palace. Beauty knew that the Beast never came to see her until the evening, and yet the day seemed as if it would never end. At last supper time came, but the Beast did not arrive. Poor Beauty! She felt miserable. At last a sudden thought struck her. What if her dreams came true? What if the Beast was lying on the grass near the rose bush? Beauty ran out into the darkness of the palace garden and made her way towards the white rose bush. There, lying on the wet grass beneath the rose bush, she found the Beast. She knelt down beside him on the grass and put her hand on his head. At her touch, the Beast opened his eyes.
"I cannot live without you, Beauty,"
he whispered.
"So I am starving myself to death. Now that I have seen your face again, I shall die content."
"Oh, dear Beast, I cannot bear it if you die," said Beauty. "Please leave, and I will marry you. I love you. I really do. You have such a kind heart." When Beauty had spoken these words, she hid her face in her hands, and she cried and cried. When she looked up, the Beast was gone, and a handsome prince stood by her side. He thanked her for freeing him. Interesting. "What do you mean?" asked Beauty, surprised. "Oh, I want my Beast, my dear Beast, and nobody else." Then the prince explained.
"A wicked fairy enchanted me and said I must be a beast and seem stupid and ugly. Only a beautiful lady who was willing to marry me could break the spell. You are the beautiful Lady Beauty," said the prince. Then the prince kissed Beauty and led her towards the palace. Soon a good fairy appeared, bringing with her Beauty's father. Beauty married the prince, and with her dear father near her, lived happily ever after. The end. Did you like that story, my lovelies? Yes, I did. I think Teddy too liked the story. I love happy endings. You are my happy ending. You are amazing. Yes. Go give somebody a hug. I give him my stuffy hug. Oh, that's a big, beautiful, squeezy hug. Okay, until the next time.